There are many reasons why global expansion initiatives fail. This video doesn't cover every single one of them, but it does highlight 10 that came up over and over again in our research of the world's fastest growing companies. Even when these reasons don't cause the demise of your company's international expansion, it most certainly leads to wasted time and millions of dollars lost. Here are the top 10 reasons why global growth initiatives fail.
1. When a company attempts to be born global. We heard this terminology used in our investigations of the world's fast-growing companies, and while elements of this mindset are helpful, this is not only unrealistic, but can also be damaging. This is because for most industries, it isn't possible to be global right at the inception. Most companies that make this wrong assumption often don't end up finding true product market fit, including in their own initial market. We strongly believe that it is important to find product market fit in an initial market before attempting to go global and operate in multiple countries. There is no substitute for proving a business in a market that is the right fit, and those who attempt to avoid this fact will eventually struggle and fail. As we will discuss in the videos to come, global class companies don't attempt to be born global, but instead take a different approach while still considering global from the beginning.
Number 2, failing to establish leadership buy-in. As with any strategic initiative, opinions may vary on the best international growth strategy to adopt and implementation of the strategy, especially amongst a diverse leadership team with members focused on their own functional areas. Now, while it is rarely easy to get leaders focused on their own corner of the business to come together, openly share information, and align on a cohesive approach to global growth, doing just this is imperative for the success of a company operating across a global footprint. Avoiding functional bias is essential to mitigating the risk of failure. Companies harboring a legacy mindset operate in silos as leadership prioritizes maintaining control over their own silo and sphere of influence above the success of the company as a whole. Each department's approach then lacks cohesion, and leaders compete for resources instead of building a strategy together. This course will share effective strategies for building internal alignment.
3. Building the wrong team. The leaders we spoke to at university highlighted that hiring the right people was both the most important and most difficult aspect of scaling globally. There are multiple facets of identifying and evaluating potential candidates to lead expansion efforts. And when you don't bring on the right team, you will certainly waste time and resources by doing the things the wrong way. Top companies repeatedly highlighted how the strength of their team was one of the most important reasons for their success. So that begs the questions, what kind of team members should companies be hiring when expanding? And how do you build well-balanced and successful teams? Our answer is to find entrepreneurs, a new emerging professional that we outlined in Module 3, as well as leveraging a new framework, global class team building framework, outlined in the same module.
Number 4, maintaining an us versus them mentality between HQ and local teams. It's fairly typical for barriers to arise between teams in different geographies. Time zones, cultural differences, and different market nuances lead to differing opinions. This divide is intensified when one of the teams in one of the geographies is where headquarters is located, where HQ generally holds an advantage in the power balance. Companies that don't make an intentional effort to integrate distributed teams not only create barriers that hinder rapid growth, but they prevent themselves from taking full advantage of the perspectives to be gleaned from local teams and best practices in these markets that can effectively overcome challenges in other markets. When an us versus them mentality takes hold, which often comes when adequate trust isn't being built between HQ and local teams, lapses in communication persist. HQ favors the way things are done in the initial market, and local teams lose motivation and become less engaged, without channels to share how the business must be localized to win in their market. HQ is then more likely to utilize a command and control management style, overestimating the universality of the value proposition, product, and operating model, instead of taking advantage of local insights that can lead to innovation. Two-way innovation, described later in this course.
5. Not revisiting customer development and the agile methodology when expanding globally. Success in your initial market doesn't guarantee success in global markets. While most companies instinctively understand this, they often lack the structure and process for how to approach changes necessary to succeed in new markets. The lean or agile methodology that is the hallmark of the latest generation of successful early-stage companies is often left at the wayside when it comes time to expand to new markets, as structured roadmaps and insistence on global uniformity can often take precedence. Instead, companies must revisit the lean methodology to succeed. However, the lean in its purest form is not effective in a global context, since the whole focus is about iterating and pivoting until the right model is validated. This is great for one market, but if this process is implemented across a multinational footprint, then all of a sudden you'll find yourself with a plethora of models, each very unique, that becomes very difficult to manage and nearly impossible to build scale around. This is why we have developed a global layer on top of the lean methodology to address and avoid these common mistakes that most companies make.
6. Not managing complexity. One thing that all companies who are operating in 2 or more countries know is that differences in local markets require changes to the company's go-to-market and operating models, which breeds complexity. This complexity in running a business goes up exponentially as more and more countries are added to the mix. Most companies don't proactively plan for this complexity and its corresponding organizational effects, often leading organizations to hit a metaphorical wall once they've been operating in a handful of countries and come to the realization that either the way they do things at HQ won't work universally across a global footprint, or the realization that their flexible strategy to adapt their business to fit each market leads to an untenable hodgepodge of different ways of doing things, which is much too difficult to effectively manage. Global-class companies work fast and decisively, but also understand and plan for the complexities that invariably come when operating in diverse international markets.
7. Not adapting communication to fit a distributed workforce. Top-down communication strategies increase the likelihood of global expansion failure. That is because company leadership is not intimately aware of local market nuances that drive the necessary localizations required for local market success. Ineffective companies rely too heavily on direction from headquarters or haven't set up the essential feedback loops to gather insights within the local market. This deficiency in communication is often mirrored in how innovation is driven, where it's either done in a centralized fashion, HQ-driven innovation, or where each local market team uses its own methods without adequate best practice sharing. Two-way communication leading to effective localization is crucial, and without it, the likelihood of international success is impaired.
Number 8. Not investing appropriate time and resources into global growth. The dynamics of how much and when to invest time and money into global expansion initiatives are often misunderstood, leading to failure. Investing in global growth requires sustained investment over time, not just right after launch. Companies who fail tend to budget for a 6 to 12-month timetable until traction in a new market. In fact, it often takes 2 to 3 years before there's any kind of return on investment. Remember that localization takes time to uncover, time to build, and time to implement. If a company doesn't budget appropriately, they tend to be more likely to launch and leave, as we will discuss in more detail in the Global Agile module. Many companies give up too easily, not dedicating enough resources to the initiatives, or they let the next shiny object take priority. Sustained investment with a structured approach for uncovering required localizations is essential.
9. Not building the structures to create momentum. Effective growth isn't just rooted in a common mindset and set of frameworks, it also requires set structures and processes to support scale. Companies that fail to proactively build organizational structures, teams and playbooks needed to foster growth end up having to fix things when collaboration breaks down. Setting a direction and hoping each team can implement a centralized vision in the market isn't enough, and in fact, it's a recipe for disaster. Companies must formalize structures that facilitates best practice sharing, leading to better collaboration amongst teams at headquarters and local markets.
And finally, number 10, not universalizing core values in company culture. If employees don't connect with core values, they won't want to work for your company. And if customers don't feel their values align with yours, they'll buy elsewhere. Most companies that fail attempt to push their company core values, often rooted in their own market's culture, onto new markets, expecting each core value to resonate the same as it does at home. This doesn't engage customers or employees. It's important to build a company culture and core values that can resonate across the globe. Companies that fail forget this important step, which we refer to as universalizing core values, leading to higher attrition rates and a higher potential for unhappy customers. The solution is not just to replace core values proactively, but also to let universalized core values be discovered through mechanisms that engage local teams.
The videos in the modules to come will both directly and indirectly address these pitfalls and provide a clear path that will help you avoid common mistakes so you can accelerate your growth, while minimizing losses in time and money from doing this incorrectly.